Hello, welcome to Focus Talk. The story of the Chinese woman breaching President Trump's Florida resort Mar-A-Lago continues to unfold. And today we invite Epoch Times senior investigative reporter Josh Phillip to talk to us about the case and also about its underlying tie to the United Front organization. Welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. So we now know that in addition to the 4 cell phones and the 1 USB that contains the malicious malware, this woman also had loads of electronic devices in her hotel room, even including a signal detector. And the FBI agent who testified on the court said that the malware is something that they've never seen before. It's like very out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
So what do you make of all these?
Yeah, that agent said he plugged it into his laptop and it started immediately installing files.
And we hope it's a standalone laptop.
Yeah, we hope he destroyed it afterwards.
Yeah.
So I wrote about my take on it, and I would say that Chinese or CCP espionage is very different from the way we normally think about espionage. It's not some system where you have just the well-trained spies. And that's not to say that who knows what it'll be in the end. It's not to say she was not a spy. It's to say that the CCP has many categories of spies. This woman, I think, is an interesting case. She could not maintain a standardized lie. Most people, I would imagine, if they're trying to do something like that, even if they're not professional spies, they would at least be able to get like their alibi right. And she kept changing her narrative, which is how she got caught. And she also, who knows what her objective was. Maybe she was trying to go in there and just wanted to plant a USB drive in the first computer she found, but who knows?
That sounds to me like a spy act, right?
Well, it would be, I think, if that was her intention. Mm-hmm. My theory was, and I wrote about this, is that I believe that she might be connected to the United Front Department. And I think that the biggest signal to that is the people she's connected to, which, she said she was there for a United Nations friendship event, and of course there are, well, I guess we'll get into it, but some other figures she may be tied to. It's hard to say whether for sure she is. Maybe she had associations with them.
Well, she did say that a friend called Charles invited her or asked her to go to that event. And the friend Charles is the guy who was like a founder of the United Nations organization that you just mentioned.
Yeah, the Friendship Organization.
Yeah.
Now, when we talk about United Front work, right, so it used to be called the United Front Work Department, now they just call it the United Front Department. This is the Chinese Communist Party's system for overt espionage. This is espionage you can see in plain day, broad daylight, happens right in front of you, and usually works through manipulating open systems of targeted societies. It doesn't necessarily violate laws a lot of times. And the way the Chinese Communist Party runs it is they have agents work through the Chinese consulates usually. These agents go and approach the different fraternal organizations or tongs, right, hometown associations in the Chinese communities. And these work as kind of the pseudo-governing bodies of a lot of overseas Chinese communities. Yeah. Not saying they're all bad. But the Chinese Communist Party knows that they are the influencers of the communities. They are the ones that have control over the societies. They're the ones who have representatives who can talk to, say, U.S. politicians and invite them back to China and these kinds of things. So the Chinese Communist Party approaches them, gives them benefits for joining this program. I've talked to individuals who said that one tactic they might use is they'll say, okay, open an import-export business. Let's say it normally costs you $1 million to export. They'll cut the price down to $500,000, and so it's as if the CCP is paying you $500,000.
Wow.
But it can never be traced on the U.S. books. You see, and so these people get benefits for joining this program. Part of what they ask is that you have a certain number of members, and the more members you have, the more benefits you get. It could be that you are able to reach certain levels of influence in the targeted society. And the higher level of influence, the more priority you have within this system. It could be that you have people who are opportunists, who work under the association, are not necessarily officially trained spies, but who have been told that if they can get certain types of information that benefit, the homeland, right, then the Chinese Communist Party will award them for that. And so they're opportunists out to steal whatever they can. They're spies by association a lot of times. They're not like trained spies. And this is different from, let's say, the real trained spies. And the Chinese Communist Party would have several categories of those. There would be the agents of influence. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they won't engage in actual espionage. It's just spreading the CCP's narrative on the world and trying to get key figures to change their position to support the CCP's policies abroad. And they might, work in the Committee of 100 is an example of individuals who, I think, embody this trait.
Influencer.
They get on these top levels of the influencers within, U.S. society, for example, and don't necessarily engage in espionage, but defend, let's say, the Chinese Communist Party's agendas, or push these agendas abroad. Other ones would be the military spies. It used to be General Staff Department, right? Third department was the hackers. Second department was the human intelligence operatives. Now that's under the Strategic Support Force. Then there's the government spies under the, I can't remember.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
But anyways, even within those, though, they don't always get along with each other. Government spies don't get along with the military spies. I've heard cases of them actually fighting and sometimes even allegedly at least killing each other. They don't get along because they're competing. They're competing for obtaining information that they can use that will boost their own standing within whatever hierarchy they're in. You see?
They could take directions from different, different thread, like maybe different senior, even between, I know even among the Chinese, like the CCP's Politburo, they have like conflicting things going on.
Yeah. And I think the CCP wants this type of competition, right? It wants to encourage this type of competition where everyone's trying to outdo the next person because in the communist ideology, right, that struggle, that competition is what they want. They believe that's a source of progress, right?
So let me let's go back to the United Front or the associate community organizations in U.S. You just mentioned that they develop members. So are you saying that these members, either the head of the organization or these members, could potentially be spying for the CCP's certain task or agenda, although they may not be well trained? That sounds to me like the very common tactics that the CCP has been using all these years, called like people see or people see tactic, something like that.
Yeah, the idea is to spread the seeds far and wide, right? The idea is not every seed is going to yield something, but if you spread enough seeds, the little bit that is naturally yielded will be worth the effort. One of the analogies used by some kind of American analysts, going back to saying comparing Soviet and American and Chinese espionage, is an analogy of, and bear with me, that if you wanted to, if the target of espionage was like a beach, right, that the Americans would use spy satellites and observe movements on the beach and try to analyze it like that. The Russian spies would send in, two well-trained spies in the dead of night to go, steal 2 buckets of sand and scoop it up and run off with it. The CCP would send 1,000 tourists, and they would lay out their blankets, and afterwards they go shake out the sand, and they would have more information on that beach than anyone.
That's exactly like that, and it's very sad because that means that they can use the vast human resources that they possess, and they use various means to either threaten or coerce or convince, I guess. So a normal, I guess, that means a normal person can sometimes be used by them.
That's right. And this is one of the most concerning elements of the United Front Department. And it's something that I wish that the U.S. would pay a little more attention to. Actually, I should note, as a kind of a side note, that in Australia right now, this is a big topic in the mainstream discussion.
Yeah.
The United Front is not just about espionage. The United Front is also about controlling overseas Chinese. And they will, threaten people's families. They will force people to spy. There have been cases, for example, in Canada, where Muslim Uyghurs have come out and said that the Chinese Communist Party tried forcing them to spy on the Uyghur communities. They will maintain databases on overseas Chinese. And this isn't just first-generation immigrants. This is second and third-generation Chinese immigrants.
Wow.
So if your grandma came from China and you were born and raised in America and your mom's born and raised in America, you will still be regarded as part of this system.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And I know that in Australia, a while ago, they expelled a person who was the head of the local organization. That organization was typically viewed as like a direct branch of United Front. I think the name is like the Peace Unification Committee or something like that. Yeah. And another woman who's involved in this Mar-A-Lago breach, whose name is Cindy Yang, she actually was the vice president of the local Florida's Peace Unification Committee. But then after the incidents, I heard that committee was closed.
Yeah, so a lot of times if they have the name Friendship Association or Peaceful Reunification Association, they're very likely tied to the United Front somehow.
Yeah, so what can we do? I mean, does the American society or the American government recognize the issue, and are they...
Unfortunately, no. And I'd say there's a couple issues involved. One is that, how should I say it, our espionage laws are extremely outdated. They're made to deal with Soviet spies, official like James Bond.
The two well-trained spies who's trying to steal the sand.
Like, those official spies, which is even during the Cold War wouldn't have done much because a lot of the Soviet agents were engaged in ideological subversion. Things that don't really violate U.S. law. The idea is the CCP has a concept of strangle you with your own system, strangle you with your own laws. They want to manipulate the elements that make open societies work and use them against those societies. United Front works by doing that. And so it's very hard for, I'd say, under our current laws to prosecute these people as spies. The most you can do is wait for them to commit crimes and then prosecute them on the crimes they commit, which won't be related usually to espionage. The other part is these people in part of the United Front operate so openly that it's a disgrace. I know I've done on-the-ground research in Chinese communities in New York. They'll have it on their business cards. They don't even try to hide it. I think at the very least, the first step the U.S. should have would be to recognize the United Front as a foreign intelligence agency and to regard its activities as foreign intelligence activities. I mean, tied to it is also the Confucius Institutes, the Chinese Student and Scholar Associations. Yeah. And this is pressuring academics, this is pressuring Chinese students. This is a system that's used to monitor Chinese dissidents, Tibetans, Falun Gong, Uyghurs, you name it, to pressure people who are Taiwanese and maybe believe in Taiwanese independence. They pressure them through this system. I mean, this is a system of harassment of Chinese Americans on U.S. soil. That and also recruitment of agents, and it is even tied to organized crime networks. The triads operate under the Tongs, for example, and the Chinese Communist Party can use these to maintain, say, smuggling networks and these kinds of things.
Wow, I think maybe they can do. I heard some congressmen already proposed to require Confucius Institute to register as foreign proxy. Maybe they can do something similar to some other Chinese organizations who we know directly report to the United Front Department in China. Maybe like the Peace Reunification Committee should be part of that requirements. And very unfortunate because it not only hurts the American interest, it also kind of dilutes the name of the reputation of the Chinese people here, because a lot of Chinese people I know, they immigrate here, they work hard, they go through a legal immigration process, they contribute to the society, but their reputation is diluted by all these activities.
Well, this is what I would hope that the U.S. government could understand when it comes to the Chinese communities, is culturally, a lot of them who have grown up under the Chinese Communist Party have been taught the idea that government is the business of government, and I should not get involved. It's a totalitarian communist system. They do not have the concept that government is your business to engage in if you're not part of the government. They don't have that concept. So what happens? The people who engage with the government on U.S. soil are usually people acting on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. The well-spoken people, the people who are not afraid, right? The people who are kind of culturally part of the U.S. system, they're more often than not working on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party. They're the ones working with the police. They're the ones who have the outreach programs for different government branches. They're the ones with, a lot of times lobbying. Of course, I would say a lot of human rights groups, advocating for human rights do the same thing. But a lot of times it's more like they're begging for help and they're getting heavy pressure from these exact same organizations who are representing the interests of the Chinese Communist Party. It takes a lot of courage for Chinese people to stand up and be willing to speak, because as soon as they speak, these overseas networks will target them or target their families if they have family in China.
Yeah, so it's really something that I think the whole society probably needs to be aware of, and the Congress or some other executive branch maybe should do something about it.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, thank you, Josh, for sharing all these insightful information with us. I think it's something really important something that more and more people should be aware of. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.